get my 6. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid. My beautiful bride Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, and my son Daniel will be back in 3 days, and I'm so excited I can barely sleep. And that's why I'm making sure to ride the heck out of my son's 4-wheeler before he gets home and takes it back. It's a 125cc. You would think it's a little small for me, but this thing's amazing. Anyway, looks like we're a little far away. Turns out he wants a motorcycle when he gets back anyway, because his Dearly's cousin Randy has taught Daniel how to drive a motorcycle over there in the Philippines, and he's been driving around all over the mountains and along the beach and everything over there. So maybe I'll get to keep this. So excuse me, I just ate a bunch of lamb kebabs. I was in town, checked the P.O. box, so I got some shout outs. Man, I'll tell you, when I go into town to run errands and stuff, I gotta eat somewhere. Charlottesville has more restaurants per capita than any other city in the United States, second only to Atlanta. And a lot of them are really good. So anyway, I'm going to actually read a story. Somebody pointed out to me, this is crazy, this is a Halloween-ish story. And I read this one last October when I was reading from October Nights. But several people have brought to my attention that this one just kind of vanished or disappeared from YouTube. So I guess this story was removed from YouTube. So by God, I'm going to tell it again. I'm going to read it again. Hey, got to match the title, right? But before I do that, going to give a couple shout outs. First of all, while I was at the P.O. box there in town, I got an unsurprised, unexpected gift from one of my sisters. There's gnats going crazy. I hope that I don't inhale them into my lungs. But, oh, there's a breeze. You know, just a gentle breeze will blow those gnats away. It's great. Now they're over there. They're coming back. So one of my sisters sent me a really nice gift with a really endearing message. And the other two were like, wow, who sent it? Well, obviously not you, and it's time to step up. No, that's okay. It's not necessary. I should probably send you guys some gifts. Perhaps here in the near future, I will send you some personally autographed, multiple colored construction paper cutout shapes. You know, I was cutting a bunch of those out the other day up in my office because we've been selling a lot of those hillbilly fly repellents from our Etsy store. Brah, if you haven't got yours, you got to go to the link in the description box below and get, you know, your hillbilly fly repellent. But I was cutting the shapes, and it's so ironic because, listen, I want to give a shout out to Jackie Black from down in Lynchburg, Virginia. Jackie shared some personal stuff with me in her letter, and mentioned also about potentially hearing a Bigfoot Sasquatch screaming in Michigan. But Jackie also shared something about, well, just some stuff. And Jackie, when I was cutting out these shapes the other day, because we're selling these hillbilly fly repellent things there on Etsy, I had a flashback, and I can remember where these shapes actually come from. I thought, like most people, it was to kind of like troll the trolls who are always like, I can't see what you're seeing. Why don't you put a red circle around it when you edit or something like, you know? So I started cutting out the shapes with the red circles, and everybody thought I was just being a man brat. But it goes back further than that. I'm just being honest here. And I was on a psych ward. I can't remember which one this was on, one or the other. But when we got to the point, some of us, to where they were trying to really let us see that they didn't feel we were a threat to ourselves or to others, they actually gave us scissors and a bunch of construction paper. And they said, here, just start cutting out, cut up the paper. This is our way of showing you that we trust you, you know, with sharp objects. And I'm not poking fun here, guys. This is just a true story. And they said, you know, if we trust you, you should trust yourself. You're not quite what you've been led to think you are. Jackie, that's why I can appreciate you dealing with your stuff, because it doesn't get better if you don't. And if you have that kind of stuff and you don't deal with it, you will destroy the lives of many people around you. It's that simple. So anyway, I'm like, what am I supposed to just cut up the paper? And they're like, sure, do anything, or just, you know, cut shapes or something. So here I am on a psych ward with a pair of scissors, cutting out multiple colored shapes from construction paper, like red circles, blue rectangles. And who would have ever thunk more than a decade later that would be implemented into my show here on YouTube? This just goes to show everything happens for a reason, and anything you go through, any trial, you can take with you and use it for a greater purpose. True story. I know you're laughing. You're like, man, this guy is bat crap crazy. Well, yeah. I mean, what, you think they put bat crap sane people on psych wards? I'm just the kind of guy who remembered the things we did there, and I implement them into my YouTube show. Wow, that flew like a kite. Wait a minute. My bad. Jackie Black's in Utah. That's the older woman that draws the really neat pictures. That was such a heartfelt dedication. But the lady down in Lynchburg is Ann. And I won't say her last name because I've said some personal stuff about you, Ann. I don't want to. We know how people are. Hey, you're just being, you know, upfront and forthright, and that's commendable. But boy, don't people love to talk crap, make stuff up, huh? If Lynchburg's not that big of a town, I know about them small towns. Not everybody, but you get a lot of them small towns. You get a lot of small-minded people with big imaginations and even bigger mouths. Make crap up. So I'm not going to say your last name. Don't want to give you that. Now, very special shout out to Jesse in Eugene, Oregon. Jesse sent me a handmade card and a very lovely letter with some really nice stuff too. Look at this. I now officially have my Oregon Sasquatch hunting permit. Lifetime, it never expires. Jesse sent me that, as well as this one. I never thought I'd put a sticker on my new truck because it's so pretty, but I think I'm going to stick this one on my new truck. And then Eugene, Oregon, you know, they just had the, they're having the Summer Olympic track trials there. And, you know, growing up a distance runner and running track in college myself and whatnot, I had a particular hero from out there in Eugene. Of course, he died when I was 3 years old, Steve Prefontaine. So Jesse gave me a note and said it would be great if I'd, Jesse, I don't know if you're a male or a female. It doesn't matter. Jesse, so I can't say, asked me to give him a shout out or her. Jesse asked me to give them a shout out. So Jesse, here's your shout out. Thank you for the stickers. And this is a very long intro, 8 minutes, didn't mean to. So anyway, shoot. On with the show. I don't know how this story disappeared. I guess maybe it upset some folks. So do you hear that tree knock? That is him, her, it, or they saying, get on with it, Crazy Lake. Stop talking about cutting out shapes in the psych ward. We're going to send you back. You know, I had it dog-eared here with those letters, and I took all the letters out. And then, all right, so this is a story called Night of the House Cat. And the story behind the story was, you know, me and my wife and my son were walking up the trail here one night, and I was talking about a movie called Night of the Grizzly. A lot of you folks will remember that. Remember that? Boy, those kebabs are good. I'm sorry, but the sauce stays with you for a while. And it was from the 70s or the 80s. It was about this grizzly bear that's just going wild at this one night. And these guys are in a cabin and they're trying to survive the night. And I was telling my son about that story for some reason. He goes, that's a pretty scary story. And I said, well, yeah, I guess if there's grizzlies where you live. But if you live somewhere where there's no grizzlies, It's not really anything scary about it because you don't have to worry about it. There's no grizzlies where you live. I said, what would be scary is if something like that happened, you know, with like an animal that is common everywhere. Because then everybody's got to worry about it, not just people who live in grizzly land. And I thought, well, shoot, what about a house cat? Thus, from October Nights, 31 Tales for Halloween Season, 4 months and 6 days. We're counting them down. And it's always Halloween around here. But somehow this story disappeared from YouTube, so by God, let's tell it again. Title, brah. It's got to match what the video is actually about, right? Night of the House Cat. Dwayne was not a bad guy. Deep down on the inside, buried under addictions that had destroyed most aspects of his life, and far beneath his rocky past, destroyed relationships, the current toxic and dysfunctional relationships in which he was involved, and underneath a very lengthy rap sheet, all misdemeanors, mind you, was one of the most gifted, friendly, wonderful human beings anyone could know. However, the fact of the matter was that, bad guy or not, Dwayne was an addict and he was out of smack. And he needed his fix. Gee, I wonder why this story was removed from YouTube. Better luck the second time around, right? Dwayne had given up on any hopes of recovery. They say that where there is life, there is hope, and Dwayne could buy into that. He just couldn't see it for himself. Dwayne's first couple of rehabs had been court-ordered, and the judge was really hoping they'd take. He did not want to send this kid to jail. Dwayne didn't want to be in those rehabs, and he didn't want what those people sitting around in circles in church basements had to offer him, so none of it took the first time, or the second, or the third, or the 9th. Dwayne was no longer a kid. He was beyond middle age, and whether he was locked up in county for his latest offense, usually petty theft or robbery, and always rooted in getting his fix, or out and living in the only place he could go on the outside world, his dead mother's mobile home on a small patch of land barely large enough for the mobile home to fit on, but both paid for, was a crapshoot. It was anyone's guess. If you saw Dwayne down at the local convenience store buying a case of Pabst Blue Ribbon, you knew he was out. If you didn't see him, he might be out, but he probably wasn't. By the time Dwayne had gotten around to the point of actually wanting to get clean and sober, it appeared to him that the time had passed. It wasn't just the withdrawal he went through on the couple of occasions when he'd actually gotten 30 days clean, as much as it was the feeling of aloneness he got because he'd burned all of his bridges. Even those people in the church basements didn't trust him anymore. Was he really trying to get clean for the sake of getting clean? Or was he trying to make it look like he was in order to stay out of jail? No one knew, and even when he was being truthful, he understood why they couldn't trust him. Dwayne had thought on several occasions about just ending it all, and on a couple of occasions he almost had. Never with a gun in his mouth or a rope around his neck, always by way of taking way too much of the good stuff when he could score it, in the hopes of passing the F out and never waking up. But he always woke up, either in the hospital or in jail. He couldn't understand why, if someone cared enough about him so much to get him help on these occasions, why couldn't they care enough about him to simply let him die? But Dwayne didn't have any of the good stuff tonight. He didn't have any weed. All he had was beer, and it just wasn't doing it for him. It had gotten really hard for Dwayne to score any of the really good stuff as of late because of those times he'd worn a wire for the po-po and gotten his best good buddies arrested. Dwayne had fallen for the dirty cops' lies, hook, line, and sinker. They'd caught him once with a joint, once with a dime bag, and both times those crooked sons of bitches were able to convince him that if he didn't start narking out his best good buddies, they'd make up a report that claimed he hated kittens and small children and the 4th of July, and no jury would do anything less than sentence him to death by way of electrocution. Sure enough, all it did was get Dwayne sent back to county with the best good buddies he narked on anyway, and effectively eliminated Dwayne's supply lines because no dealers trusted him. This would all lead, of course, to an entire new section of rap sheet for Dwayne. Breaking and entering. Dwayne was paying attention all those times in lockup. He'd gone in a petty pot smoker back in the beginning and came out eventually, after a certain number of incarcerations, a bona fide common criminal. Dwayne had shared cells with many addicts who knew way more about scoring the good stuff than he could have ever imagined, The hardest part of it all to believe for Dwayne was just how easy it was to do. Look, for anyone who gets surgery or has had teeth taken out, they all get scripts and few of them ever take them. Their bathroom cabinets are full of painkillers. When he first heard those words from Scrubby, one of his cellmates from incarceration, whatever number it was as if a learned Christian had opened the Holy Bible and witnessed to a new born-again believer for the first time. Dwayne's first scam was so easy it had him kicking himself in the ass for not having thought of it himself. All it took was a cheap push mower from the local Walmart and an even cheaper snow shovel from the same place. In the summers, Dwayne would go door to door, telling his story to the few residents of his small shithole town who'd answer the door when he came knocking. The story of how he was trying to turn his life around, but no one would hire him because of his past. So by God, he was taking his life into his own hands and starting his own lawn care and snow removal business. Most folks wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and so they gave him a chance. But pretty soon, after he'd finished up their grass or their snow in the winter, some of these folks who actually did take their meds started realizing they were running out of their pills a little too soon. Some of them a lot too soon. And they made the connection between Dwayne's last visit and their seemingly missing pills. And they noted how every time Dwayne came over to do his work, he always asked to use their restroom before leaving. The jig was up. And no one hired Dwayne to do their yard work or shovel their snow in the winters anymore. So Dwayne had taken to not so secretive petty theft. Technically, he never broke and entered into anyone's house to steal their pills, or money, or personal effects he could pawn for cash. He'd simply approach houses where it appeared no one was home, and he'd knock on the door. If indeed no one was home, Dwayne would simply walk into the home and take what he wanted, starting with the pills, of course, as long as the door was unlocked. And in many cases, that was the case. Tonight, as Dwayne was needing his fix and lamenting about how it was nearly midnight, he flipped through channels, figuring out how to justify in his mind not becoming an all-out, kick-the-door-in, total and complete piece of crap burglar. I'll go to houses where it appears the folks are sleeping, he said aloud, flipping through the channels of the old television his mother had bought years ago. It preceded modern flat screens, and Dwayne was surprised that it still worked. Even more surprising to Dwayne was that he could actually pick up 3 channels without having any sort of cable contracts. Unfortunately, they were old, crappy, and always playing the same dang thing. Tonight, crappy channel letter C was airing for the second time this week, Night of the Grizzly. Dwayne had thought that movie was scary when he'd first seen it back when he was a kid. Back when he'd been a good student, a promising athlete, and on everyone's good list. Back before the crappy little Appalachian town he lived in wasn't so crappy. It was before the Walmart went in on the other side of the county, killing the mom and pop retail businesses in his now crappy little town. And it was before the internet took away the rest of the educated middle class types because they could work from anywhere now, mostly from home, and they were sick and tired of those nasty mountain winters. And it was before the meth and the pills swept through next and took the hearts, lives, and souls of almost everyone else who remained, the ones who never left the crappy little Appalachian town. This crap's only scary the first time, Dwayne said. And by the way, the word crap was not used that many times in one paragraph. For those who call me redundant, the word that starts with the letters SH was. I just changed it, trying to be more PG rated, okay? This crap's, which not really the word crap. This crap's only scary the first time, Dwayne said, watching the crappy actors who played the main characters of the B-budget classic rush into the secluded cabin of the woods as the frothy, foamy, excessively salivating mouth of the... That's cheesy writing right there. 3 adjectives. Come on, man. That was cheap. Sorry. I do apologize for that. Frothy, foamy, excessively salivated. Ooh. Of the mouth of the grizzly was shot in close up while the great beast screamed. Or if you live where there's actually grizzly bears, he said. Ain't got the black bears around here and they're sissies. That's the word I'll use. Dwayne shut off the television and chugged the remaining half can of beer that sat on the end table beside him. He'd had enough booze to remove his inhibitions. It was dark enough outside now for him to move through the streets of his crappy little town, Methville, it had been referred to by many, unseen, since the city stopped being able to afford keeping the street lights on more than a decade before. Just a decade after, they decided to only keep every other light on. And Dwayne had had enough of needing his fix to wait any longer, so he left his crappy little mobile home and went out into the dark of the October night. And he began heading toward his target. And at least there were a few jack-o'-lanterns lit along the way to guide him. One in the yard here, one in the yard 5 houses later there. Halloween was just a little more than 2 weeks away. I can't wait. Dwayne had decided he was going to swing by the town's crazy cat lady's house. Excuse me. The woman had a couple dozen cats, and he'd heard she'd recently had some sort of surgery. Dwayne couldn't remember if it had been open heart surgery or hip replacement surgery, but hell, he figured either way it'd require quite a bit of narcotics afterwards, so he didn't care. It only took Dwayne 5 minutes to walk the entire length of Main Street and reach the woman's house that was located on the far end, opposite end of his mobile home. He stood out front for a full 5 minutes once he arrived, watching and listening, and he heard or saw nothing except the occasional movement of something small and low to the ground in the woman's yard, which he assumed was a cat. Just to be on the safe side, he waited another 5 minutes, and then he walked up the porch steps and onto the porch to try the door. Dwayne grabbed the doorknob and turned it slowly. As he'd suspected, the door was unlocked, and this was going to be even easier than he'd imagined. He knew that the old folks of the town, like the crazy old cat lady, still saw the crappy little town as it had been when they were younger. They always went on and on about it making a great comeback. The younger generation knew it was hogwash, and that these people just couldn't move on, mostly because they didn't have the skills to do so. They'd been big fish in a little pond back in the day, but the day had passed. And now they were of retirement age or older and understood little to nothing about modern technology, and therefore they had nowhere to go. If they risked becoming little fish in that big pond out there called the real world, they'd be eaten alive, and they knew it. So they stayed in Methville and reminisced about its finer days from years gone by, and lied to themselves about similar days returning and being right around the corner. The biggest advantage to their pipe dream for Dwayne and his fellow druggies was their pipe dream. The biggest advantage to their pipe dream for Dwayne and his fellow druggies was their pipe dream, in that these idiots still did not lock their doors. And on a warm fall night, just like tonight, Dwayne and the likes of his ilk could walk right into their homes and take whatever the hell they wanted to take. As Dwayne slowly pushed the door open, making sure not to allow it to squeak, he glanced to his right and saw the crazy old cat lady had put a bumper sticker beside the door. Dwayne wasn't surprised to see a bumper sticker on the side of the house, because it was the crazy old cat lady's house, and those crazy old cat ladies will do the damnedest things. He moved his head close to it and read what it said by the dim light of a lamp that was on in the living room. Forget the dog, the sticker read. Beware of the cat. These silly, crazy old cat ladies, Dwayne thought, and he stepped inside and closed the door behind him just as quietly as he'd opened it. Once inside, Dwayne made a beeline to the crazy old cat lady's bathroom. Like most houses in his crappy little town, Dwayne had been in this one before. He'd either done lawn work for someone, or had been friends with their children at some point in the past, or friends with the homeowner, or he'd already robbed them at least once. Got his bases covered there, huh? After making it to the bathroom, Dwayne opened the medicine cabinet above the sink, and man, oh man, did he score. The thing was filled with bottles, and from the dim night light in the bathroom, he could read the labels, and he was elated to see that the bottles contained various flavors of the good stuff. Vicodin, Percocet, oxycodone. Hell, Dwayne thought there was enough here to stay high for a month and sell some on the side to get a little bit of beer money. Since Dwayne had been jonesing for some time, he shoved 2 each of the 3 different flavors of the good stuff into his mouth and chewed them up like candy. Like all good druggies, he learned early on that the stuff enters your system and gets you high quicker if you just eat it or let it dissolve in your mouth. Taking pills with water was for sissies who actually needed them for the medicinal value. Dwayne could feel cats rubbing up against his lower legs as he stood in the bathroom, holding the weight of his upper body up by his arms on the sink, waiting for that feeling that made him feel like life was worth living. Oblivion. And it came so quickly. So quickly that Dwayne almost fell as he exited the bathroom. In trying to regain his balance, he stepped on a cat's tail and the cat screeched and ran for one of the back bedrooms. Dwayne didn't care because he was getting his fix he'd been needing for some time, so he somewhat loudly said, "F that cat." Of course, it doesn't say F that cat. It says the real thing. There's some dirty words in my books, brah. By the time Dwayne made it to the living room, he was really feeling the good stuff, so he decided to sit down on the couch and enjoy it. He turned the television on with the remote, and lo and behold, the crazy old cat lady had been watching the same channel he'd been watching when he left his mobile home. Night of the Grizzly. Frothy, foamy, and some other weak adjective. "This crap ain't too bad when you're effed up," Dwayne said, and then he ate another pill. As Dwayne sat enjoying his high and really getting into the movie, almost as intensely as when he'd matched Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album with the movie The Wizard of Oz, and he began noticing a smell. "You know you've done it." He'd not noticed it before, but he'd had his mind on other things. "Probably cat crap," Dwayne said and tried to ignore it. Dwayne heard a soft growl coming from under the entertainment center. He was so high he feared the grizzly bear from the movie might be making its way out of the television, like in that movie The Ring. So he got down on his knees to investigate, and that was when a paw, much smaller than that of a grizzly bear's paw, came flying out from the bottom shelf. The paw's extremely sharp claws managed to catch Dwayne on the end of the nose, sending him flying backward in his attempt to get away. "You effing cat," Dwayne said, returning to the couch. And just as he started really getting into the movie again, the cat under the entertainment center started growling again. It was really bringing Dwayne down off his high. Dwayne popped the top off of one of the medicine bottles to take some more pills, and as he did, he got what he thought was a great idea. "You need to chill the F out, cat," he said, as he got up and made his way to the kitchen. There were bowls in the floor all over the room, and for some reason they were all empty. No food, no water, but Dwayne was too high to notice. And it benefited him anyway, as it made his idea work even better. Dwayne pulled the milk out of the refrigerator and poured some into a bowl. Then he crushed up one of the Vicodin pills with the back of a spoon and a plate. He put the now powdered pill in the milk and stirred it with a spoon. Dwayne carried the bowl, of laced milk into the living room and sat it on the floor in front of the entertainment center. Before he'd even had time to get back to the couch, the cat that was under the entertainment center came out and began lapping up the milk as if it hadn't eaten or drank in days. "There you go, you little MFer," Dwayne said as he sat back on the couch to enjoy the movie, popping yet another pill for good measure. Dwayne was at the best part of the movie, just as the big nasty grizzly bear was about to break into the secluded cabin in the remote forest in the middle of nowhere. However, the cat he'd doped up came flying at him through the air and attacked him right in the face. Dwayne's high might have been great, but this cat's high wasn't. It was tripping bad. This cat was tripping balls. Dwayne rose to his feet, trying to pry the cat off his face as he did, but his efforts were to no avail. The harder Dwayne tried pulling the cat off, the harder the cat dug in so that he could not. Dwayne began falling down all over the living room. In his face, unsuccessful efforts to remove the attached cat from his face. Dwayne began falling down all over the living room on his whatever. He's got a freaking had a cat stuck to his face. Stand and fall and bleed, stand and fall and bleed. That's all Dwayne was doing, and man, had it really killed his buzz. He was really going to be in need of those pain pills when this was all over, and for the medicinal purposes this time. Thinking quickly, Dwayne decided he'd ram his face into the wall. It might hurt like hell, but it would hurt the cat more. Dwayne took off at a run and actually dove toward the wall, face first. The only problem, he didn't hit the wall. He hit a window, and he broke through it. And he fell nearly 200 feet to his death below. Damned Appalachian hills and all these houses built on stilts so they won't slide off the hills. The cat was able to remove itself from Dwayne's face just before Dwayne went flying into the window. It crawled back under the entertainment center and passed out and slept off the rest of its high. The next morning, it wouldn't even have a hangover. The next day, the Popo showed up at the crazy old cat lady's house because someone had called him and told him that Dwayne was passed out in public again, this time down the hill back behind the crazy old cat lady's house. The Popo, upon checking Dwayne, ready to haul him in again, found that he was not passed out, but that he was dead. They found the crazy old cat lady in one of the back bedrooms as well. At least most of her. She'd been dead for days. No one had known, because no one checks on the crazy old cat lady. But her cats, despite not having been fed cat food, milk, or water while she had been dead, had eaten well. The end. October Nights, 31 Tales for the Halloween Season, written by a guy that used to cut out construction paper shapes with scissors on a psych ward. Dearly burnt out the starter, so I gotta do it this way. See you for more next time. From here to PBS S, the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch show.